Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 4 preview for Section 1B, 1C, and D, and the Hudson Valley Football League. Again, really exciting time. Football season is flying by. We're now beyond the halfway point in the regular season. So now records are getting more interesting. We start looking at these leagues, Mars, but let's start off. How's it going, brother?
Yeah, man, it's going well. The fact it's already week 4 is just out of this world. It's just flying by, and it's like that bittersweet feeling because football's going by quick, but it's starting to get close to playoff time.
Yeah,
which is that's just already a fun event.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to welcome our audience. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like always, if you're new, make sure you guys follow us on all our social media accounts. On the page, cover Section 1 football. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can get all our content at famsportsny.com, where you can also make donations to the show and buy merchandise if that interests you. And we always appreciate any donations that come our way. So how it's going to work, Mars, we're going to go over the games, talk about the games on slate, talk about some of the leagues. We're not going to talk about Section 1D because it's 2 teams. We're going to talk about the games and those teams, but we're not going to go over that league in the Hudson Valley Football League. But we're going to talk about C, we're going to talk about B a little bit, and then we'll dive into some previews, and then we'll pick all the games at the end. All right, so let's get into it. First one up, Pleasantville 3-0 at Putt Valley, who's 0-3. That's a Friday game, league game. Briarcliff 0-3 at Pearl River is a non-league game. That's Friday. Hudson Valley Football League game, Peekskill 0-3 at Ramapo, who's 1-0. We have a CD matchup, Tuckahoe 3-0 at Valhalla, who's 3-0. We have another B matchup, Ardsley 3-0 at Hen Hud, who's 1-2. That's a league game. We have Nanuet 3-0 at Byram Hills, who's 2-1. That is a league game. We have a Hudson Valley Football League game, Irvington 1-1 at Greeley, who's 4-0. And then on Saturday, we have Hastings, who's 0-3 at Haldane, who's 2-1 in the CD matchup. We also have another C matchup, Rhinebeck, who's 0-3 at Woodlands, who's 0-3. That's non-league. We have a C matchup, Crow and Harmon, who's 1-2 at Blindbrook, who's 1-2. That's non-league. And again, C, all the teams are bunched together, but there is 2 divisions in C. So those that are not sure what I'm saying. Albertus Magnus 2-1 at Dobbs Ferry, who's 3-0. That's a non-league. Then we have a B matchup, Westlake 1-2 at Bronxville, who's 1-2. That's a league matchup. And then finally on Monday, Hudson Valley Football League, Poughkeepsie, who's 1-1 at Edgemont, who's 1-2. All right, let's start with B real quick, and then we'll get to those games. We'll go B, C, and then we'll get to them. Again, D has 2 teams, so we don't really need to go into that one. The Hudson Valley Football League we'll go into at another time. But we are going to talk about those games. The North League, all right, there's 2 of them. There's North and South. The B class, In the North class, I'm already jumbled. But Nanuet's on top right now, 3-0. They're 1-0 in league play. They obviously have more league games to go. Byram Hills is second, 2-1. They're 1-0 in league play. Third team is Pearl River, who's 1-2. They're 1-1 in league play. And fourth is Bronxville, who's 1-2. They're 1-1 in league play. Fifth is Westlake, who's 1-2. They're 0-2 in league play. And again, top 4 in each league go to the playoffs as the automatic berth. In the South, Ardsley and Pleasantville, both 3-0. Ardsley's 1-0 in league play. Pleasantville is 2-0 in league play. Really interesting dynamic there. Hen Hud is third, who's 1-2. They're 1-1 in league play. Then is Putt Valley, who's 0-3, and Briarcliff Hamilton football program, both 0-3. But Putt Valley is only 0-1 in league play, and Briarcliff is 0-2. So that's how B works. Again, top 4, if it were to end today, would be in the playoffs. When you look at C, they're cut into the A and B division. A has Dobbs Ferry at 3-0. Number 1, number 2, Crow and Harmon is 1-2. Then Hastings and Rhinebeck are both 0-3. And top 2 in each league are going to the playoffs in this one, right? For the B League in Class C, Valhalla is 3-0. Albertus Magnus is 2-1. Then it's Blindbrook, who's 1-2. And then Woodlands at 0-3. And again, D has 2 teams, so we already know who's going to the championship there. Hudson Valley Football League. If anyone does know, and those are the Hudson Valley Football League teams, let us know how the playoff system works, because I'm still trying to figure that part out. So please let us know. But let's get to a couple of the games, Morris. First one, I want to talk about Hastings. CD matchup, 0-3 at Haldane, who's 2-1. Hastings is 3-2 versus Haldane. Haldane, though, has won the last 2 meetings. And I want to start with Hastings, okay? Trying to get their first win. Offensively, they go into the spread. Robert Kennedy, you know about him. One of my favorite players, junior. 2 passing touchdowns last week. Dual threat guy, but he sometimes could be a little bit reckless. He can throw the ball into some sticky situations. But I tell you what, him and Keith Capuano, who is a 2-way stud for them, he had 2 touchdowns last week. those two guys can really make plays. The question I have is who else can step up and make plays with them? And that's what I'm looking at. Some of these other skill guys, can they step up? And another thing is, can this offensive line pass protect? I'm looking at Declan Friedman and these other guys. They got to protect the quarterback. They've allowed, again, it's not everyone, one person or not, but this unit, there's been too much pressure on the quarterback. They got to continue to do a better job at pass protecting. Defensively, to me, it's about stopping Haldane's rush attack first and foremost because they've given up way too many big plays, especially in the run game. They got to slow Gianchinta down. So I'm looking at these linebackers, Capuano, Leckie, Unger, I believe. This defense likes to stunt some linebackers. They're going to have to make some plays, force them into some third and long situations. Because Haldane has weapons. If they can get the running game going and they can dictate where this game is going, I think Hastings is going to be in a lot of trouble in the secondary because these guys have weapons who can throw around. So stopping the run game and getting them into second, third, and long is going to be huge. When I go to Haldane, offensively last week, there were times I thought they moved the ball pretty well, but they couldn't finish. And turnovers were a big one, Mars. They had 3 turnovers last week. I'm looking for their quarterback, Ryan Van Tassel, to have a bounce-back game. He had 66 yards passing last week and 66 yards running. This is a guy who can move around. Another guy, Gianchinta, I said, he's one of their best players. He was kind of stifled a little bit. He had 35 yards rushing, and that's why I said Hastings got to stop the run because if Haldane is just going back and throwing all the time, that's what leads to more mistakes. So I would imagine they're going to try to get the running game going a little bit more and have more success doing that. They have some weapons in Ryan Irwin as a receiver and Hombo as a receiver. Those guys can make plays for you on the outside. But, again, they got to show that balance. If they just step back and keep throwing it, it makes that offensive line have to pass protect a lot, which probably is not what they want to do. Defensively, I thought they played strong. I thought this defense has been pretty solid. They're a bend but don't break defense. They really get after you, and they force turnovers. They forced 3 last week, which kept them in the game. And we know those defensive backs are really going to have to step up. Guys like Gaines, who's a tremendous cover guy. Hombo, he had an interception and a fumble recovery, I believe. Carone, one of their safeties, was one of their leading tacklers. Haldane's got some guys who can make plays on the defensive side of the ball. I was impressed with their defense. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
When I look at this game, it is interesting because of the fact that you have both these teams that definitely have some skillful guys that can definitely make some plays, right? When I look at Hastings, it's really going to be, in my opinion, really, can anyone else really step up that it hasn't been called, right? And I feel like it needs to be a team effort here. Defensively, they definitely need to slow down the run just because Haldane just has this potent rush offense, right? I feel like they need to kind of...
They didn't last week, which was a struggle.
Well, normally they did, right? And that's the big thing, is that's the reason why that they did struggle was because they didn't do what they normally can. And I feel like that's what their game plan is going to be. Let's establish the run. Let's try to set up what we normally can do, and then they'll at least open up everything else that we can that we can do in our playbook. Defensively, they're winning the turnover differential, right? I feel like they have been forcing turnovers season-wise. And
last week they broke even. It was 3-3.
Yeah, but I feel like for overall, they've been winning this turnover differential, and I feel like they need to be able to continue doing that to give this offense more ability to get back on the field and really get that momentum going. That's going to be the big thing for definitely for Haldane. Looking forward to this game. Yeah,
I like the way the defense played. Let's go to another game. Albertus Magnus 2-1 at Dobbs Ferry, who's 3-0. This is a C matchup, but non-league. Dobbs Ferry is 6-2. In this game, or in this series, if you want to call it. Last time they played, though, was in 2017, so it's been a couple years. Last week, Magnus won versus Haldane. Dobbs Ferry won versus Hastings, which was on Monday, so Dobbs Ferry is on a short week. But let's start with Albertus Magnus. Offensively, again, last week I thought they drove the ball well, especially running the ball, but penalties and turnovers killed drives. They had 3 turnovers last week. Penalties have been killing them all season. They need to, again, they got to play smarter. But their running back, Savoy, he had 172 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns last week. I think it's going to be tough to run without consistency, especially in between the tackles versus this Dobbs Ferry front 7 who, they attack you. So I would imagine they're going to try to attack the edge and get into the quick passing game because, I think their quarterback can get the ball to guys like Metcalf, LaRusso. I know Joseph got hurt last week. I'm interested to see his status. But they got some weapons on the outside that can make some plays for them. And Dobbs Ferry gave up some pass plays last week, so I'm interested to see if they could test it. But I'm looking at this offensive line because they're going to have their hands full. And if they can step up, they'll have a good chance of winning if they can win up front. It's going to be really tough, but again, it's going to be a fight. You're going to lose some reps, but let's see how much they can hold up. Defensively, again, you're playing the option. Multiple guys on Dobbs Ferry can hurt you. It's not just one guy. You need to attack your read. You got to be disciplined on who your man is and what your gap is, and you got to attack it. Do not fall for the little tricks and for the different movements. I'm looking at one of their linebackers, Edelman. He's going to have to play big in this one. I thought the defense definitely stepped up last week for Magnus. They forced 3 turnovers like we talked about previously. But they struggled last week a little bit with quarterback mobility. Now, they won't be facing the same kind of passing attack spread look, but they're going to try to sucker you in, constantly running the same action, and then the play action comes, and that's how they get behind. So you got to stay disciplined for this defense. For Dobbs Ferry, again, we talked about this a bunch of times. I'm really impressed with their offensive line play. Again, they move bodies. They do a good job getting to the next level, and they run downhill. And, again, they can run downhill. They can run outside. They can tack multiple gaps. To me, it starts with their fullback, Brian Dan, who last week was a stud, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns. But they have multiple guys. Holman, he had 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sanzo, who's been a solid two-way player, 50 yards rushing. Marsland, another solid two-way player, 32 yards rushing. I tell you, if Dobbs Ferry's passing the ball they don't need to pass the ball. If they pass the ball 5 or less, Mars, they're probably up in this game. That's what my barometer says, right? If they're only passing about 5 times, it means they're running the ball really well, and it means they're probably winning. Defensively, they got to create pressure. Again, they gave up some passing touchdowns last week. If they can get pressure, which Magnus did give up pressure on their quarterback, if they can get some pressure on there and do a little bit better job in man to coverage, I think they'll get some opportunities at some turnovers. One guy I'm looking at is their linebacker, kind of an edge guy. He's kind of a, they'll send him on stunts. Marsland, I think he can have a big day. This is a guy who makes some plays on both sides of the ball. I think he can have a pretty solid performance this week. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, when I look at these two opponents, I feel like they, in some cases they do have some even matched tendencies against one another, but I feel like when you look at, I'm going to focus specifically on Dobbs Ferry for a minute, and I feel like Dobbs Ferry's rush offense has just been so impressive.
Yeah.
When you have, Brian Darren being the way he is, where he's just a downhill runner, he's going to definitely, hit you with a punch, right? But then you have like a bunch of these other guys that can just make plays.
Holman, Sanzo, Marsland.
Yeah, and you just have this offensive line that's just been clicking. They're just moving bodies away. It really is going to be a difficult thing for Albertus Magnus to really stop that. But obviously, they're going to have to play tough against the run in order to even keep this game close, right? Yep. And I think that when you look at Albertus Magnus, they need to be efficient, right? The turnovers are an issue. The penalties are an issue. And the thing is that you have the skill players to make this game interesting. It's really whether or not you have these drive killers that just ruin any sort of momentum that you have. And if you can limit those things, then this game will definitely be more competitive for sure.
Absolutely. Let's go to another matchup, and this is a B matchup. Ardsley 3-0 at Hen Hud, who's 1-2. This is a league matchup. They have not played dating back to 2004, Morris. So it's been a long time. Ardsley, they beat Bronxville last week. Hen Hud lost to Byram Hills. Hen Hud, they want to try to get back into this. Again, you have to get into the top 4. They are, but you want to get in good positioning in the top 4. But let's start with Ardsley, Morris. Offensively, they have been really solid. They're number 2 in points scored out of the 10 teams in B. This rush attack behind this physical offensive line is really dynamic. They move people. They're going up against a defense that likes to move. They like to shoot gaps. They like to stunt. So it's going to be important for communication amongst this offensive line, knowing who you're responsible for in kind of that 3-3, 3-4 defense in Hen Hud. But I do think they can. If they can communicate well and don't give up penetration, they'll have success running the football with their running back, Jack Phelan, who has been a stud this year. And last week, 185 yards and 3 touchdowns, which alleviates the pressure from their quarterback. And they haven't asked him to do a lot, but he has been efficient. Quarterback Ballarge, he was only 4 of 7 last week, but this is a dual-threat guy who can hurt you out on the edge and throwing the ball. He's a guy who can buy time and find guys downfield. And if they can't stop the run, it really opens things up for this offense. Defensively, even when teams move the ball on them, this defense has been really strong in the red zone. They force turnovers. They get 4th down stops. They forced 3 turnovers last week. They're going against a team that wants to run and attack those C gaps, hit you with the wing T concepts, the counters, and the play action rollouts. So I'm looking at this front 7. Again, defensive line, guys like Dash, linebackers like Watson. if they can bottle up the rush attack, especially out on the edge, again, Hen Hud is not a team that wants to drop back 25 times, right? I mean, they have a quarterback who can throw, but that's not their identity. And so if you can get them to do that, I think you'll have some opportunities to force some turnovers, especially with guys who can get after the quarterback. When I look at Hen Hud offensively, Mars, I thought the O-line struggled last week. And I think they're going to try to step up and rebound this time. And they have some good size up front. But they're going up against a really physical front. They got to get back to trying to run the ball with consistency. It's going to be tough in the middle to run up the gut. But I want to see them get guys like Peneteri, Martinez the ball, and try to get some of those attack, off tackle, and some counter action. I think play action can work, right? But the run game's got to get set up. If they can set that up, the counters and the play actions will work. They can hit some pass plays with their quarterback, the Capicotti, guys like that who can hit some big plays. Defensively, they run that aggressive style defense. Again, how can they hold up against this physical front? But they got to attack, right? They're going to be a little bit undersized. They got to get guys stunting. They got to get guys penetrating and try to create some losses. And the big thing on the pass attacks, keep Large in the pocket. This is a guy who buys time, and when he does, it's hard to cover people that long. He can make some big plays with his arm. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be a big game for Hen Hud, and Ardsley needs to, from their perspective, continue this, this dominance of this division so far. And I think that when you look at Ardsley, they have one of the second best offense, technically by points scored. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with the offensive line as well as a lot of the skill players they have. And I think that for the offensive line, they're going to be the key to success. I think that they need to basically continue this dominance. They need to continue opening up the lanes for the running, rush offense. And I feel like if they could do that, it really will shift the momentum in their direction. Defensively, you just need to set the edge. You need to keep everything inside so that you can't really open up all these other counter looks that will be coming along with the rush offense. Hen Hud, it's really going to depend on their offensive line, in my opinion. I feel like they're playing up against an Ardsley defensive front that's very impressive and very strong. And I know as long as Hen Hud they've had some struggles, right?
Yep.
Right. And I feel like if they continue to have those struggles, then Ardsley's defense is definitely going to just have their way. So it really is going to depend on this offensive line to really make the moves needed for Hen Hud to really establish what they want to do. So it's going to be a tough game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to another B matchup, another really intriguing one, Mars. Nanuet 3-0 at Byram Hills, who's 2-1. I mentioned there's a league matchup with Nanuet sitting up on top. Byram Hills is 3-0 in this series. The last time they played was in 2019 when Byram Hills won, obviously. Last week, Nanuet beat Putt Valley. Byram Hills beat Hen Hud, both in impressive fashion. Let's start with Nanuet, Mars. Offensively, this is a physical run offense. They like to hit you with the play action and rollouts. They want to make this game ugly. The uglier the game, the better it is for them. And to me, they have a bit of a thunder and lightning tandem at the running back spot. The offensive line is not the biggest, but they are physical. But when you look at the running backs, my lightning guy is James Moran. I think he's one of the best backs in the class. He's really explosive, 5'11" kid who can hit the hole hard, run through contact, but when he gets in the open field, it's see you later from this kid. He is a dynamic player, and he can line up at tailback, he can line up at wingback. They even send him out some patterns. So that, to me, is the lightning of this offense. And the thunder is Hollis Bryson, who's kind of that downhill guy, run through contact, knock you on your butt, get those hard-earned yards. Last week, he had 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. They have a nice little dynamic between these two guys. And then they have your quarterback, Frondy, who I think, to me, is the key in this game. He's got to use his legs. They're going to do in the play action. They're going to use him in play action and rollouts. The offensive line I mentioned is not the biggest. They're going up against a really big front that's hard to move. But the last time Byram Hills lost was in week 1. And a balance, what really hurt them was a balanced attack. And they gave up over about 200 yards of offense to the quarterback, throwing and running. And that's why I believe Frondy could have a really good opportunity, because they're going to be bailing out with those big tackles. They have big tackles. It's not easy to move them and run downhill, right? So the play action and the rollouts will be there. Can they take advantage of it is going to be big. But let's talk about the most impressive unit, Mars. Defensively, this is the number 1 defense in points allowed in Class B. They've allowed only 1 score or less in each game. They swarm to the ball. They're physical. Last week, they forced 4 turnovers. They're going against the gun wing T offense. You're going to see some motion. You're going to see them trying to mess with your eyes, right? But they got to slow down this rush attack. again, if you slow down the rush attack, it's going to lead to opportunities for your defense. But Byram Hill's offense is another offense that does a really good job with play action, and they have a quarterback who is mobile. So, you're going to see both different styles, but kind of the same game plan, right? They're going to try to attack you running the ball, and they're going to try to get their quarterback through play action and rollouts to hurt you. And it's which defense can do it well. This is the number one defense. Can they stop this Byram Hills attack? When I look at Byram Hills, Mars, they're the number one offense in B. They've scored a lot of points. To me, it starts at this offensive line where they have some good-sized kids. Guys like Gluckman, who's big. Glilage, who's big. Frankel, who's big. I mean, they got some big boys out there and then some other linemen who can move, right? So it's a mixture of big and movement, and they go in that gun wing tee like I talked about, and that rush attack is potent. Guys like Jaworski, who had 212 yards last week, Mars, and 2 touchdowns, and guys like Rocco, who ran the ball well. And then when you get that high potent attack of rushing, whether it's, again, they line up tight end wing, they'll give it to the halfback, they'll give it to the wing. Then comes the play action with their quarterback, Cohen, who last week, 3 passing touchdowns, I believe, 1 rushing touchdown. The guy has been really efficient on those rollouts. He can buy time with his arm, make those off-platform throws. This has been a really, this offense has been strong. And it's, they're getting contributions from a bunch of guys. And they have some weapons. I mean, Drellinger last week, he's a tight end wide receiver. He had 2 receiving touchdowns. Secchiano has been a big play target for them. Keep an eye on that guy who can hit some deep, they've hit some deep passes with him. Defensively, it's about stopping that run, right? That physical downhill rush attack. You got to rely on their size up front to prevent movement of the line of scrimmage, and keeping Frondy in the pocket and Moran outside the edge is going to be huge. Make it a bump and grind game. Again, you want it to be ugly because I do think Byram Hills has more weapons to make explosive plays, right? So to me, don't let those guys hit big plays out on the edge in Nanuet. Mars, what do you want to talk about in this one? This is a really intriguing match.
No, it is definitely for sure, and this is definitely going to set the stage for who is the top team, in that division. And I feel like when you look at Nanuet, they're going to try to just do what they do best and just run the ball, whether it's going to be on the outsides or right downhill, right in your face. And I feel like, you have multiple guys that can make a big play on this offense, and their offensive line has just been moving people. And I feel like this is definitely going to be a big test for them, right? Because Byram has a larger stature type of team. They're a bigger group of guys.
Yep.
So the question is going to be, can this offensive line do the same thing again? And Byram Hills is definitely, they've been improving, right? I feel like they've when you look at offensively, number 1 scoring offense in the league in class.
Yep.
And I feel like that's a very impressive thing because you're going up against a defense who's number 1 in points allowed.
Yep.
So this is
that classic 1v1.
1v1 and see who is the better ranked, right? And I think that's going to be something that should be interesting to see. I think that Byram Hills has the size, and for them, it's going to be about stopping the run. I think, in my opinion, if I was going to say a matchup here, it's going to be Nanuet's offensive line against Byram Hills' defensive line to see who's going to have the advantage, right?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be interesting because of the fact that you're going to get a battle between Byram Hills' offense and Nanuet's defense. That's already a given.
Yeah.
But the question is going to be, can Byram Hills' defense stop Nanuet's offense? That's going to be interesting. So I think that's going to be a one hell of a matchup.
Yeah. Let's get to the game of the week. And it's a CD matchup, Tuckahoe 3-0 at Valhalla, who's 3-0. This is a non-league game, but again, 2 3-0 teams going at it. And Tuckahoe actually in this series is 7-0 versus Valhalla. Last time they played was in 2018. Tuckahoe won at Crone Harmon last week. Valhalla won versus Woodlands. Another really intriguing matchup. Let's start with Tuckahoe, Mars. Offensively, they come out into the spread. And again, you got to give big kudos to this offensive line. They have done a really, really solid job. And some of those guys on that line, Santucci, Reichelt, Cypher, they've allowed this offense to be balanced and really be a potent group that coach can lean on the run game or the pass game because they both have been successful. But to me, it starts up front on that offensive line. But we know who their top dog is as a skill guy, and it's that running back and linebacker Myers. I mean, last week, he didn't really need to dominate the game. They moved to the passing game a little bit that dominated. But he's every defensive coordinator is looking to stop him, number 1, and for good reason. He's a guy who can hurt you on the outside and running with power. But I tell you, I've been impressed with their quarterback, Annunziata. Last week, really efficient, 10 of 14, 179 yards, 4 touchdowns. He also had 58 yards rushing. I think he had 5 touchdowns total. They had 5 different players score a touchdown last week. Just really impressive. Benke, he had 3 touchdowns. Pagnota, he received a touchdown. Annunziata was really, really solid, and they hit some big plays in the passing game. Again, 179 yards on 10 completions. It's pretty darn good. They like to attack downfield, and I think they're going to try to do that again on Valhalla if they can get pass protection up front. But to me, coach is a run-first guy. They're going to test the waters running the ball first. But if they can, it opens things up. That threat opens things up down the field, which I think they're going to test. Defensively, this defense forced 6 turnovers last week. They get pressure with their front 4. They'll bring stunts. And I think that's what they got to do against Valhalla and this quarterback who, they're going to take downfield shots as well. So you got to get pressure up front is going to be big. They're going to test you with a bunch of deep routes. This secondary will have opportunities because the quarterback likes to take chances, but they're going up against some skill guys with some speed. So they can, they'll get behind these guys if you don't get some pressure and if you're not smart secondary-wise. For Valhalla offensively, again, they like to go into the spread. They'll give you some of that play action, but it starts with their quarterback, Dawson, 4 touchdowns last week, 8 of 10 passing marks for 201 yards. Did have the INT. We do talk about sometimes he likes to take chances. He gives those wide receivers opportunities to make plays, and sometimes he forces it a little bit, but this guy is really solid. And again, 4 touchdowns on 8 completions is pretty good. They like to mix it up. I would think that they're going to mix it up against this pass rush. They're not going to just go bombs away deep all the time. Sometimes they'll hit you with the quick stuff, and then sometimes they'll go into some max protection sets, and that's when they'll attack deep. But they have weapons. Guys like Butcher, Cooper had 2 receiving touchdowns last week. Potate, Foyset. They have guys who can win one-on-one matchup. Guys who, if they get in the open field, they can hit the home run. I think Valhalla's going to test this Tuckahoe secondary. Defensively, again, it's not going to be easy to generate a lot of pressure against this front. Again, the focus has got to be stopping Myers, number 1, and Annunziata, number 2. Just don't let Annunziata keep hitting deep balls on you, right? To me, the secondary has got to let them try to take advantage of the short stuff, come up and make tackles. Don't get beat deep. They want to test you deep. These guys can make some plays. Don't give up those big plays, Mars. What do you want to talk about in this one before I go to matchup and player?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be the matchup to watch. I mean, I feel like obviously it's our game of the week for a reason because of the fact that these two teams are 3-0. They have a lot coming to the table here. I feel like when you look at Tuckahoe, they just have a lot of weapons, right? And specifically, another bad man in Myers, right? He is a guy that we've been talking about for years, right, as being a top-tier player in this league, and the offensive line has just been really fantastic, yep. And I feel like they're going to have a big game here for sure. Defensively, the secondary is going to be the thing that I'm watching here because the fact that when you're playing Valhalla, they're going to try to throw the ball on you because they have a guy like Dawson who can really make the big plays but also can be a little daring at times. So the question is going to be whether or not the defense can really make a play here. From Valhalla's point of view, Dawson, like I mentioned just a second ago, is a playmaker. The question is going to be whether or not the offensive line can provide him the time to make the big plays. And obviously, just narrow down your mistakes, right? Narrow down I know that Dawson's is a gunslinger. He's a guy who's going to try to fit it through the tight windows. But my suggestion would be, if you're going to try to sling the gun a little bit, be more efficient with it. Try not to throw it into a really tough situation. I'd rather you just make the smart play because at the end of the day, Dawson has the ability to hit anyone on the field, right? The question is, if you turn the ball over, right, you're really putting your defense in a tough spot because the fact is, if the defense has to go back on the field, you got to stop Myers again, right? It's like pick your poison. I know you want to hit the big play. Everyone wants to hit the big play, but the problem is if you miss on that gamble, then that means Myers is back on the field, and you really don't want to keep giving this guy more ability to keep running the ball, right? From Valhalla's point of view. Yeah.
To me, the matchup, Mars, I'm looking at these Valhalla wide receivers versus the Tuckahoe secondary. You kind of mentioned it. There's a lot of speed on that Valhalla wide receiver side. I want to see if this Tuckahoe defensive backs, who forced a bunch of turnovers over these last couple weeks, how they play them. It's going to be really intriguing. To me, the player to watch, I'm looking at Basiaka Butcher from Valhalla, wide receiver and safety. This guy could be a dynamic receiver. He's made plays now the last couple weeks, had a receiving touchdown last week. Deep play, a deep threat against any defense. And this is a guy that people are going to have to take notice. All right, Mars, you ready to go to the game picks?
Yeah, I'm ready to roll.
All right, let's do it. We're going to go into the game picks again. Our goal is to get over 75% on all our picks. And let's start first, a B matchup. I'll pick this one. Pleasantville 3-0 at Putt Valley, who's 0-3. Mars, did you know Pleasantville has the number 2 defense in points allowed in Class B? I mean, they have been impressive defensively. They've done a good job of preventing people getting into the end zone. Putt Valley, again, is a team that I actually thought that they ran into a real tough Nanuet team. I thought the previous week they played better. It was hard to move the ball against Nanuet. Now they're going up against the number 2 defense. It's going to be difficult to move the ball consistently. And I think there's going to be too much Cotter. I do think this pass attack from Pleasantville has been getting a little bit better, right? It's all about consistency there. This is a good opportunity to keep working on that. I'm going with Pleasantville, Mars, on this one. Let's go to the next game, another B matchup. The Briarcliff Hamilton football program 0-3 at Pearl River, who's 1-2. Briarcliff, I thought they hit some big pass plays last week against a solid defense in Pleasantville. I thought the defense played better in the second half. I thought it was a bit of a struggle in the first half. Again, this is a program trying to accumulate itself back into Section 1 football in Class B. Pearl River, can I just tell you, it was nice to see them develop that rush attack. Again, we know about their running back. O'Connell had a really good game last week. 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 INTs. Quarterback O'Neal had a touchdown. It's all about this defense, and the defense played better last week. They can continue. They should win this game. I'm going to go with Pearl River. I think they make enough plays, Mars.
Yeah, I'm going to go Pearl River too. I feel like Pearl River has the skill capability of definitely moving the ball on Briarcliff, and I feel like that's what they're going to do. They're going to give their offense a lot of capabilities, a lot of opportunities, and then just capitalize them.
Let's go to Hudson Valley Football League game. Peekskill 0-3 at Ramapo, who's 1-0. I thought Peekskill played hard versus Greeley, and this is another team that's showing slow improvement. It's a program that's pretty much starting from scratch. But when I look at Ramapo, boy, Rasan Griffin, what a game he had last week. I'm looking to see his encore. He had 10 tackles, 2 INTs, and also 100 total yards of offense. Over 100, excuse me. I think this is a game Gaines, his wingman, could have a big one. And to me, the defense played pretty well. I just think there's too many weapons for Peekskill to match. I'm going to go with Ramapo on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ramapo as well. I feel like you said, Peekskill is still growing as a program, so I think Ramapo just has the skill capability, and I think he's just going to move the ball effectively on them. I'm going to go Ramapo.
Ardsley 3-0 at Hen Hud, who's 1-2. Hen Hud, this is a big game for Hen Hud to try to, move up into positioning. But I'm going to go with Ardsley. I just think Ardsley is really on a roll. I know defensively there are times that, there has some lapses and offense has been able to move the ball. But overall, they've been a pretty well-rounded football team. I think it's too much for Hen Hud to handle. I'm going Ardsley.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think Ardsley just has the size advantage and the strength advantage, and they just have the skill guys that can make the big plays. I'm going to go with Ardsley here.
Hudson Valley Football League, Irvington 1-1 at Greeley, who's 4-0. Listen, Irvington is another team that, there's going to be some bumps in the road. They had, 1 week showed pretty impressively. Other week got blown out. Then they went on a pause because of the game, because of the COVID stuff. So it's hard to tell exactly, but Greeley has been humming. I mean, I love the way that they've been playing up front. Wool at the quarterback spot making plays. They got some skill guys who can catch the ball and move around. But this front, the offensive line and defensive line, and Koku Doheny, etc. They've been impressing. I'm going to go with Greeley. They're going to start the year 5-0, which I don't even remember the last time that's happened.
Yeah, no, I'm also going to agree with Greeley. I think Greeley, as you mentioned, has just been clicking on all cylinders, and offensively they just feel super efficient. So I'm going to go with Greeley here.
Let's go to a CD matchup. Hastings 0-3 at Haldane 2-1. Depth is obviously a big concern for Hastings. I know Robert Kennedy I like. Capuano I like. When I look at Haldane, the turnovers were big last week. They cannot have it. I like the way the defense has been playing. A real big part of me wants to give Hastings the win here, but I'm going to go with Haldane at home. I like the way their defense is playing, and I just don't know if enough players outside of that Kennedy-Capuano matchup can make plays at the skill position spot. And so I'm going to go with Haldane. I just think they have a little bit more firepower. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Haldane as well. I feel like they do have just more ability on the skill position-wise, offensive line. They're just a solid force. So I think they just have the advantage here. I'm going to go Haldane.
C matchup, Mars Rhinebeck 0-3 at Woodlands, who's 0-3. Both teams trying to get their first victory. I'm going to go with Woodlands. I think Woodlands has a bit of a speed advantage. I like the grittiness that Ryeneck played with last week, trying to get their offense going. Offense is kind of still figuring it out. They, trying to get some consistency. And so I'm going to go with Woodlands, who also struggle offensively, but I think they'll hit a couple big plays with their speed. I'm going to go with Woodlands.
I'm actually going to go with Ryeneck. I feel like Ryeneck, I feel like both these teams are, still developing. They're still having some struggles. They're still having some kinks they have to work through. I just think Ryeneck is going to have the advantage. It's going to be a close game. I'm going to go Ryeneck.
Another C matchup, Mars. Croton Harmon 1-2 at Blindbrook, who's 1-2. This is a non-league game, but to me, a really intriguing game. I thought Croton Harmon had a really tough loss last week, playing against a really good Tuckahoe unit. And I want to see how they get back and bounce back. And I do think they'll get back to spreading the ball around, having multiple guys contribute, which is when they're at their best. Blindbrook, I really like the way the defense is played. I mean, they got Slows, they got Carey, they got Shaw, Short, all making plays on the defensive side of the ball. Defense has been pretty tough the last couple weeks. D'Inverno has some really nice catches, but I'm going to go with Croton Harmon. I think this is a big opportunity for Croton Harmon to get back on track. I like the way Blindbrook has played, especially defensively the last couple weeks. I think this is going to be close, but I'm going Croton Harmon.
Yeah, I'm going to also go Croton Harmon. I feel like they just have a little bit more than Blindbrook. Blindbrook is definitely getting better, and
yes.
You can kind of see this happening. I'm happy to see it, right? But I think Croton Harmon just has a little too much right now. I'm going to go with Croton Harmon here.
Albertus Magnus 2-1 at Dobbs Ferry, who's 3-0. This is another C matchup. Albertus Magnus, I love the way the defense stepped up last week, really saved them and won the game for them because the offense, although getting a lot of good drives, too many penalties, turnovers. And I think, unfortunately, until they get that fixed, it's going to be a bit of an Achilles heel. And so I'm going with Dobbs Ferry. I think they play a cleaner game. I think Dobbs Ferry can run the ball efficiently. And they're not going to get put in circumstances where they're going to throw the ball too often and get some turnovers. I do think defensively they've given up some big pass plays, but I think they'll run at the ball enough and control this game. I'm going Dobbs Ferry, Mars.
Yeah, I'm also going to go Dobbs Ferry. Dobbs Ferry's rush offense has just been so impressive. They just have so many guys on that group that just can make a play. So I'm going to go Dobbs Ferry here. I think they have the advantage.
Let's go to an important B matchup. Westlake 1-2 at Bronxville, who's also 1-2. This one was a bit of a tough one for me, but I'm going to go with Bronxville, Mars. I think Connor O'Neill is going to have an easier time moving the ball than he's had the last couple weeks against some really stout defenses. And this offensive line, I thought, blocked pretty well for the run, especially last week. Garofalo is going to be big running the ball. He ran the ball hard. He's going to have to run the ball hard again. I think he will. I'm going to go with Bronxville.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bronxville, too. I just think they have just a little bit more on the advantage of skill player-wise. And I think they're just going to just get them going, and they're going to start using that momentum to carry for the victory. I'm going to go Bronxville. I
thought the defense played pretty tough, too. Mm-hmm. Better, at least. Let's go to Hudson Valley Football League game. Poughkeepsie 1-1 at Edgemont, who's 1-2. I'm going to go with Edgemont, Mars. Offensively, I like the way the O-line respond. I want to see this offensive line respond from last week. They had a bit of a struggle. I think Gio Leonardo is another guy who's going to take a step forward and have a big-time game. They got to, use the counteraction against the speed of Poughkeepsie. I think Poughkeepsie will have a bit of a size advantage, but I do think Edgemont will make the necessary plays. I think that if they can avoid turnovers, they'll have a better chance. I also like the way the defense played last week, so I'm going to go with Edgemont.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Edgemont as well. I feel like they just have the advantage up front. I think it's going to give them, the ability to kind of make the big plays, especially on the run side. I'm going to go Edgemont here.
B matchup, Nanuet 3-0 at Byram Hills, who's 2-1. Big-time league matchup, Mars. Again, I look at this Nanuet defense. I look at the physical run attack. They want to make it ugly. They want to be physical in your face. I like this Nanuet squad. But I'm going to go with Byram Hills. Again, I picked Byram Hills to win the North League before the season started. And to me, they just show they have a really potent offensive attack. And the defense has been pretty solid. Again, it's not the top two, but a pretty solid defense with that size against this physical rush attack. I just think they can make a few more plays in the passing game that Nanuet cannot. So I'm going with Byram Hills.
I'm also going to agree with you. I'm going to go Byram Hills. I feel like Byram Hills has more to bring to the table. Not saying Nanuet doesn't, but I just feel like that Nanuet is more of just a run-heavy team. And if Byram Hills bails out to stop the run, can Nanuet make those other plays to really open up the game? And I think Byram Hills can do those things. And their defense, they have the size to be able to at least match up decently with what Nanuet's bringing to the table. So I'm going to go with Byram Hills here.
All right, the game of the week, Mars, the CD matchup, Tuckahoe 3-0 at Valhalla, who's 3-0. Who do you got and why?
Well, this has been a really tough one. I feel like when you look at these two teams, they both have a lot of the star power that you come to think of in what a game of week always entails. You look at Tuckahoe, we got Myers, right? And then now you just have Myers, who's already a top tier talent, but then you have a bunch of these other guys who can make the big plays, right? And I feel like that's going to be something that to look out for. Then you have Valhalla, right? Valhalla has like Dawson, who is definitely an impressive quarterback, and he has a lot of speed.
Frank's finest.
Yeah, as a Frank's finest, he has a lot of speed on his team, and they can definitely make a lot of those very impressive wow plays. And the big question I'm going to have is going to be basically, can this Valhalla defense really match up with Tuckahoe's offense, right? Can they match this offensive line? Can they stop Myers? And I think that I'm gonna pick Valhalla here. I'm gonna pick Valhalla because I think that that Dawson is gonna be very efficient on his throws, and that was kind of the big point I was trying to make in the preview, was that if Dawson can be efficient and not have a turnover, then they're gonna keep moving and chipping away. Yeah, he'll hit some big plays. They'll keep moving down the field and really just drain away the momentum of the game to kind of match onto their side, right? Because I think if he does struggle with turnovers, then that's where it starts to change the other direction. Because I think if Myers getting the ball in his hands more often is definitely something that you don't want to see. Right? So I think Valhalla is going to keep it out of his hands, and they're going to win this game.
Tuckahoe has been one of the more impressive teams in Section 1 on both sides of the ball. And Tuckahoe is 7-0 versus Valhalla. Valhalla's looking to break that streak. Valhalla's not talked about a lot because, again, they've been winning games, and sometimes their starters haven't even been finishing games. This was a tough one to definitely pick, but I am going to go Valhalla. They are home. I think they're going to make a few big plays in the passing game that Tuckahoe cannot match. I think Valhalla breaks the streak, gets their first victory against Tuckahoe in a long time. I'm going to go with Valhalla. All right, everyone, that was our show. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. I know I forgot my Valhalla Vikings hat, but there he is. There's my guy right there. Valhalla's going to take it away. And again, I hope you guys enjoy the weekend. I hope you have a football-filled weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.